here in the audience today, and to those that might be watching us via live stream. Today, we do have 3 school board members that are present. Ms. Ivanchek, myself, and Mr. Destin are present, and on the phone we have Dr. Kelly and Dr. White, and Mr. Chambers is also present. And if you notice, we have some partitions between us this meeting, and we're going to keep these up for the foreseeable future, but I'd like to thank maintenance and Mr. Horton for getting this done for us. And as you can see, we're like bank tellers right now. That's how. So we'll move on down to approval of the agenda. 2.1 will be changes to the agenda and approval of agenda. We have no recognitions, no visitors at this time, no administrative personnel appointments. Public comment will be 6.1, members of the public desiring to address the school board, Form MIS 5241, public input and or discussion of agenda items. And just so the public knows, on Monday night, you have an opportunity to come to the meeting in person, or you can call. The phone number will be up on the screen at the beginning of the meeting. So that moves us down to 7, committee and staff reports. 7.1, in-county travel paid for the period of June 25th, July 22nd, 2020, presented by Rita Scallon, Chief Financial Officer. And then 7.2 is an update on reopening schools during COVID-19. And Mr. Chambers, I will pass this over to you, sir.
Thank you, sir. So I just want to start off by saying that I'm going to have Mr. Horton come up in a second, as well as Ms. Lightbourne come up. They're going to briefly give you some information in areas pertaining to their responsibilities. But I do want to say just very, very briefly, just extremely proud of the work that's happening throughout our school district, both at the district level, when you look at maintenance folks, the facilities folks, what's happening in MIS or curriculum, food services. Everybody is working extremely hard and very focused on making sure that, 1, we're prepared for the start of school, and 2, that we do it safely. Then you look at what's happening at the schools right now, whether it be principals, assistant principals, teachers, front office staff, the guidance counselors. We talk about being an OCSD family, and everybody is coming together once again to ensure that we can reopen schools as safely as possible during these unprecedented times. And I will say, if I could give badges of honor or even more pay, and I say that with a smile, because the amount of individuals who are working well overtime, well beyond their contracted day, is something that is very vast right now. As you know, right now, creating schedules for students with those individuals going online. Mr. Horton's going to talk a little bit about that, but that is a monumental task, and I'm so proud of the work that Mr. Horton, Ms. Lightbourne, and their group are doing with our principals. So with that just being said, I'd like Mr. Horton to come up first and discuss, and then Ms. Lightbourne to come up afterwards.
Good morning. So just to give you an update on what's happening with the students and the scheduling right now. So as you know, we've registered about a little under 7,000 students for My School Online out of a district population of about 30,000, so it's about 25%, a little bit less than 25%. And that's where we stand today. And so the task involved in doing that, because at the middle and high school level, those students have 6 or 7 courses each. And so we've had meetings this week with the middle school principals and the high school principals and their assistant principals in charge of their master schedules, to go through a very complicated process of finding teachers or matching teachers and certifications to students and course requests. And so as you might imagine, we're addressing all of our teachers who have health needs to come out of the school building, and making sure that we have as a priority to make sure that those teachers have online students to teach, so that's matched, and that was our hope, to be able to do that. It's a very complicated process, but we have to work together to do that. So in every case that we can, if we have teachers that either for medical reasons or health reasons are coming out of a building, or in some cases they've just been willing to step up and teach online coursework. So either of those situations, we've been matching those teachers with students from that school. And so we've been able to do that to a great extent. But there always are cases in which a particular school may have 200, 300 students going online, and there may not have been as many teachers coming from that school for medical reasons. And so there's not a perfect match. And so what we've been doing this week is aligning teacher resources across the district to help cover all of those course requests. And the thing that we're trying to do is be very cost effective in that methodology. And so it could be that that school where a lot of students were removed to go to My School Online, but yet not as many teachers wanted to be online. Well, if you look at that master schedule, there's far fewer sections of classes to cover, and no indication of additional FTE funding based on student allocations, the BSA. So we know we've got a relatively fixed amount of money to handle the educational side of this. So that involves us then taking these teachers who may not have full sections of full five sections in the building, and aligning them through voluntary means at this point, aligning them with their the course enrollments that are out there that need to be covered. So you might not only see a teacher who is brick and mortar 5 periods a day, or a teacher who's online 5 periods a day. You will see a blended model. And to me, that's the epitome of teachers stepping up and helping to get us through this crisis. And so you might see teachers who are 3 periods in the building and 2 periods online, and then what that looks like, right? And so the curriculum department's done a great job of working through that and what the different responsibilities of those teachers are. But I can tell you right now, I'm just working with all these schools and principals and teachers, everybody is stepping up to try to put this together and make it work. And it's a daunting task. We need to be flexible enough. I mean, you know, Dr. Hale in HR could get a call tomorrow that heaven forbid, we've had somebody that had a medical emergency that's a classroom teacher, and then we have to be flexible enough to try to adjust and do all that without adding additional teacher allocations out into the buildings where we absolutely don't have to. So that's the process we've been going through. And MIS is then going to be taking the lead to create all of these classes. And so that it's all seamless and available and viewable for the teachers in their gradebook. And every teacher knows who they're teaching, and every student knows who their teacher is. And that communication piece is clean and consistent. That's what we're doing. And then at the elementary school, because there's not so much with schedules and periods of the day, but the elementary principals right now are identifying that maybe 20 of their kindergarteners are going to begin the year in My School Online. Well, that's the equivalent of a kindergarten teacher. So they're right now, and have been this past week, working with their teachers to identify those that either for health reasons would go online or also would volunteer. And so that's happening at the elementary level as well. And they're even combining resources. So I talked to Miss Massey this morning at Floroso. She has 30 fourth grade students, for example, or third grade students that are My School Online. Well, that's too big for one class, and it's actually a little small for 2 classes. And so what she's done is partnered with another elementary school who might have a lower number of fourth grade students needing to go online. And those 2 teachers together can departmentalize and then kind of be in the proper range of students. So you're seeing that kind of cooperation across schools as well, which is you know, it's inspiring to me because it's everybody stepping out of their comfort zone and making sure that we can solve these challenges that districts are facing, and making sure we do it in a safe but yet cost-effective way.
So I have a question about blended. When you said that, like you might on secondary, so I might have 5 classes at the school and then 2, whatever the breakup. Am I doing online in the building on a computer somewhere, or am I going home?
So I think that depends on scheduling. So absolutely, we have a lot of teachers who are in the building and will stay in the building all day, and will open up a Zoom and be available for those students and communicate with those online students as to when that they'll be available. Teachers will also always be available for email response and things like that. But yes, ma'am, to answer your question, it could be either way.
Okay.
Depending on the makeup of the schedule, it could be that they are in the building the entire day doing their blended, and they absolutely can do that. But also, and I think Sheila might speak to that as well, that, yeah, I'll let her.
Okay.
Get myself.
So we did create a blended, what a blended teacher looks like as well with the group, and the union has also agreed on it. But what we talked about yesterday and the day before with the high school and the middle school principals and assistant principals was looking at, since we're on block and it's a 1-3-5, 2-4-6 kind of day, if at all possible, if somebody is online 2 periods, let's say, that their 1-3-5 might be brick and mortar, so their Monday, Wednesday is brick and mortar, and then their Tuesday, Thursday could potentially be online, and they could come in or they might not come in. That will be up to them. They will make every effort to make that schedule palatable to the teacher, because we appreciate them doing what they're doing. But there may be situations where it's just not possible, where there'll be a 1, 3, and then 5 is your Zoom, so you probably will just Zoom at the building.
Right. Yeah.
So
that
that'll
makes
be up
sense.
to the teacher, though.
Okay, great, thank
Okay.
you.
Ms. Vancheck, anything else?
Well, I just wanted to say I know a little bit about master schedule, having, being in the, as a teacher a long time, and for the public, it's the biggest jigsaw puzzle you could ever try to work. That is about it, and there's always a piece missing, and trying to fit in there, and just want to emphasize the work that I know you must be doing from when I saw it back in the, quote, normal time. So thank you very much to everyone's working on that, because I can't imagine all of that goes into that. It's a daunting task.
I used the, yesterday with the principals, I used the picture of doing a puzzle that was all white pieces, and were really, really tiny white pieces that had to be put together. And so that's kind of where it's that difficult when you're mixing both the online and the brick and mortar.
Absolutely.
And
I
that
can't
helps.
imagine.
It's helping keep our teachers whole. It's helping cover what our students want. So it's good, but it's not easy.
Right, yes. Well, thank you very much.
All right. Mr. Destin?
I did have a question, and another nightmare for you guys to handle, but what are we doing with the substitute situation? I know in the past, teachers were responsible for finding their own substitutes in a brick and mortar school, which is probably going to be very difficult. And then you roll over into the online. When we have some that are going to have to quarantine or be sick, which we know we will have, what's our solution to that? Do we have any substitutes that have trained to be online? And this, I know, is a really difficult question, but what kind of thoughts have y'all given to that?
So we're looking at that. It's very difficult because you can't just step in because you're not in the platform. So we'll have to use other teachers potentially that are doing that and see if there's a way to work something with them or with our classroom assistants in some way. Hopefully with you're talking about an online full-time online teacher who
right.
may get sick.
And if they're just quarantined or not that sick, maybe they can still be online?
Well, and that's what we're kind of hoping. Yeah, I mean, we did have that situation fourth quarter where people were on medical leave and they were able to come back because they could work from home. So, and facilitate fourth quarter. So we're hoping some of those things will also occur. Remember that the platform does work for them teaching themselves. All we're talking about is an open Zoom for question and answer, which we may be able to have a partner teacher help with. So we're working through those things. Those are some of the fine-tune. We're still working on the big, and those are some of the fine-tunes that we're getting down to.
Back on the brick and mortar, have we given thought, or are we planning to actually try to substitute the district finding the substitutes? Because I know it was difficult to find a substitute back in the good old days. And now we will have to find substitutes to come work for minimum wage to get into what we might term as a seriously atmosphere. What are we going to do about substitutes at a brick and mortar?
I think we still have the same system of the call for, the system works district-wide. So for the call, I believe that there's a number of subs. Dr. Hale has been contacting the subs that are on the list, asking if they're still willing to sub. So he's getting a good, clean picture of who's willing to sub and who's not. I know that we're looking at a sub per school that just goes in to be there for the emergency situations that may happen. So I think that's being considered right now. So there'd be a sub at every school every day, no matter what. You'd have that person to fill in those emergency situations. And then I think we're looking at potential pay to see if there's a way to do anything with that.
I would think so, because we're going to have to compensate them a little better to get them to come. Dr. Hale, I see you stood up. Do we have any results so far on the folks we've contacted to see what percentage say yes, they're going to be available?
Yes, sir. We've actually been reaching out to every single sub on the sub list.
Yep.
And as of yesterday, we have approximately 250 subs that have not only committed, there are many more that have committed, but what we have also asked them to do is go through some online COVID-related trainings prior to coming back into the building, along with the child abuse training that we're asking everybody to do each year. So we have over 250 subs that have already completed 3 trainings, indicating that they'd be willing to come back, which is encouraging because that they're chomping at the bit to get back in the schools as well. So our sub roster is actually much bigger than that. Traditionally, we've had only a certain number that would actually accept jobs and such like that, but that very closely relates to the ones who have already completed the training, and that's an ongoing conversation with people. So we are confident that we are not going to be worse off than we have been in the past in terms of supply, especially with the reduced number of teachers in the building.
Right.
And there's been a significant change to the professional development calendar, which causes a lot of necessary sub needs in the past. So with some reduction in need and the reduction of teachers in the building and the sub measures that we're taking to make sure that they are COVID trained and more or less committing to be available, I'm not less confident than I have been in years past, but as we all know, subs are always a dodgy subject, but we're working on that right now.
Well, that's encouraging. Thanks for your update.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Let me go down. Dr. Kelly, do you have any comments regarding what we were just talking about?
No, but I do appreciate the explanation, and I just want to shout out thank you to Eric for working on the sound too. Thank you.
All right. Dr. White?
No, it's very complicated, and I certainly appreciate all the work that they're doing to try to make this blended model work. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Okay.
So thank you. And before Ms. Lightbourne gives a brief update, Mr. Horton, I just want you to come back up for one second. And we spoke a little bit about this this last board meeting, but class size, for example. I know there are many who would love to see class sizes at 10 or 12, and I think we would all love to see that. But there's challenges to doing that. If we could all make our schools bigger, if we could all have even more funds, we would definitely do everything that we could do to make class sizes as small as possible, especially going into this year. But I just want to just make sure that I know you all will receive calls, but I just want to be very upfront as we go into the school year, what class sizes will look like and a little bit of the rationale behind that.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chambers. And so as we've mentioned before, going to school 5 days a week necessarily involves a number of students being there, and every classroom of students has to be supervised and has to have a teacher. And so if students are going to school 5 days a week, and we tried to first off cut every class size in half from what it typically is, you would need mathematically twice as many teachers and twice as much classroom space to be able to do that. And so in a 5 day a week model, there's neither the space in the building nor the teachers to teach and supervise, because it would, in that instance, in that example, it would double the budget for teacher positions. And so I think there are models out there, not many around here, where There was a thought of maybe students going to school in alternate days and then being in school some of the days and home some of the days. And so I think if you look around, at least Northwest Florida and certainly in Okaloosa, that's not a model that was adopted. So I think all of the districts are facing the same kind of reality that we are. And in a district where 30 or 40% of the students are going online, then there are teachers that have to be assigned to teach those kids. And so that reduces the number of teachers available for in the building, which necessarily means that class sizes, generally speaking, will be similar to what they've been in the past. Now, we do see in some cases, especially with the elementary level, where a number of students is coming out of the building to do My School Online, and it's a larger number than we might typically put in a class in the building. So for example, if 23 students in a first grade classroom are going online, well, we can cover that with one teacher, whereas in the building we may not have done that, right? And so what that does is when that larger number is coming out, that does result in fewer students being in the first grade in that building. And so there will be, in some cases, a decline in the in-building class size in situations like that. But otherwise, it is a matter of space and teacher cost to be able to maintain the 5-day-a-week model, but have class sizes that are half the size. And now I work very closely with finance, and the superintendent has charged us with making sure that we're looking at areas where we really need to do more than we maybe would have done last year. And so at a high school, if it takes another 5-6 periods to reduce some other class sizes that maybe aren't under the class size amendment, we're going to work to do that with our principals. So I've told them, as we look at their schedules, be aware and alert of specific situations with higher enrollment that we can address because the teacher could take on a 6th period or something like that, if that makes sense.
Okay. Mr. Chambers?
That is it for Mr. Horton, unless you all have any questions.
Okay. Ms. Vancheck, any? Mr. Vinson? Dr. Kelly, any questions for Mr. Horton?
No, thank you very much.
Okay. Dr. White?
No, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Chambers?
All right, Ms. Lightbourne?
So I just wanted to give you a curriculum update of things that are now beginning to go out for teachers. And we understand that teachers are not back fully yet, but if they want to be informed of things, we're now sending things out for them to do that. So first of all, I think you've all seen Terry Schroeder's COVID Chronicles, so those will go out weekly. She and I talked about her next one coming up and what we'll put in that. So I think it's been very helpful in bringing to light what it's going to look like and what we need to do. So that's the first thing. Then we're also doing a newsletter. The first one will go out this Friday, and it will have a curriculum kind of Q&As, things that the kinds of questions that we're kind of getting overall. There will be 2 audiences, one parents and one instructional and non-instructional staff, just staff period. And it'll go through, we'll have a curriculum section, an HR section, and then a facilities, which would include buses and things like that. So there'll be 3 pieces to that newsletter, and that will go out once a week as well. Just for information, so people know what's happening. Our teachers know before they get back what it's going to look like, and our parents know. So that's happening. On the curriculum side, in both, in secondary right now, we have done Zoom meetings with teachers who have wanted to get on at this point in content areas of math, science, ELA, and social studies, so that they could understand the new pacing guides that are connected to the EdgeNuity pacing, so that we stay together, and if we have to go out, what we can do with that. So those Zoom meetings have already taken place, and then we have more scheduled. So those have been very successful. The teachers feel better now that they've kind of listened to somebody, understand what's going on, and that's been Stephanie Thetford on math and Tammy Ellis on science and Lynn Kozak on social studies and English. So those things are occurring right now. Right before we came in here, we got Accelerate as our elementary online program. I just sent out an email to the principals to get out to their teachers. There are live webinars available for that, so how to teach on Accelerate, what the startup looks like, what the program looks like, those things. And they're free to us, but the teacher has to sign up for those. So those literally went out right before I stepped into here. So elementary teachers will be able to get into and look at that Accelerate program through those webinars. Also on that link that I gave them is another section that has some videoed PDs, or not even PDs, information. So they'll be able to look at that, because a lot of our folks are saying, hey, I want to look at what I'm teaching from. So we've been trying to get all of that information out as quickly as we possibly can. So that went out actually this morning. I also wanted to update you on, we talked the last time about synchronous learning and asynchronous learning, and the subjects that we have being done synchronously. So synchronously would mean that these teachers are allowing students to Zoom into their classroom during the classroom time. And we did that with certain subjects that either the numbers of students that were wanting those classes didn't warrant a full Zoom class, or it worked better for that subject. So ROTC is doing it across the district. Chorus at high school level is doing it, and band at high school level is doing it. The middle school felt like there was so much instruction that it would be very difficult for them to instruct a group of students online as well as the ones in the classroom. So that was not an opportunity at the middle school level. IB is doing it across the board for any students that are needing to stay home. We have AP Physics in 2 schools doing it, Digital Design in 2 schools, Latin in 2 schools. And the reason why I say 2 schools is because that's where it's offered. It's not always offered across the board. ASL in 1 school, Italian in 1 school, digital video, and JavaScript in 1 school. So those are ones that will be synchronous. Then I did want everybody to understand that the other AP courses are being offered, and I worked with the high school principals and assistant principals yesterday and sent out another email clarifying what they're doing. So like when you look at AP Calculus, I think we had 23 students across the district online for AP Calculus. So we had to sit as a group and decide, okay, who has an AP certified, Linda, you understand this, teacher that isn't full brick and mortar that can take this course. That's what we had to do. So we worked through all of those AP courses. So I'm just going to rattle them off for you. AP Calculus, AP Stats, AP Biology, AP Environmental, AP US, AP Human Geography, AP Psych, AP World, AP Language, AP Lit, AP, and then we're working on microeconomics and macro. I'm not sure how that's going to work yet. We only had 3 kids signed up, so I'm not sure. We'll have to work on that one. But those will be done asynchronously, but those teachers, so an AP teacher will just have an AP class that they'll be teaching in a virtual environment, not through EdgeNuity, but through their own teaching style. Now we have College Board who is going to train them. There's a lot of resources through College Board that will help the teachers do that. But those courses will be taught by an AP certified teacher, but we had to put everybody across the district into one, and now those schools are working together to get the books to everybody and those sorts of things. So that's also occurring. That was part of the puzzle yesterday. So there's a lot of puzzles that we're putting together, and hopefully everybody can be patient with us because we're trying to make it palatable to everybody. Also, I want to say that we have, again, remember the 4 platforms. They can be either brick and mortar, they can be My School Online, and still come brick and mortar for something if they want to, and we do have students doing that for like band and chorus and things like that. They can do Okaloosa Online if it's something that my school doesn't have, and then they can also do, if we can't find it in any of our platforms, then we also go to Florida Virtual. Now if we can't, if it's not in any of those and we can't do it synchronously, these are the courses we're doing synchronously, then that's something that may not be able to be offered in the online environment. So that's where we are with those things, but we've tried to make every accommodation we can make for everyone. So Okay? Any questions?
I'll start with Ms. Vancheck.
Yes. Ms. Lightbourne, on the EdgeNuity, I used EdgeNuity when I was a teacher.
Yep.
And I've heard some not favorable things about EdgeNuity, but I just want you to speak to that because it's my understanding this isn't the old format back in summer school where it wasn't that quite as challenging as we might want. So
Right.
speak to that because I've had a lot of calls, emails from teachers going, EdgeNuity, that's
Sure.
really not the level we want them to be. So if you could address that, please.
Okay, so the EdgeNuity that's done in summer school, first of all, is a credit recovery
Right.
form. So it's a shortened program. It also allows students to go in and take a pretest and they test out of sections. That is not the EdgeNuity that we are doing. So there's about 3 EdgeNuity platforms. So the platform that we're working through is the full program. And also in fourth quarter, the difference between fourth quarter and now is that in fourth quarter, we were trying to do everything with grace and compassion, as you know. And we knew that people didn't choose to go online in fourth quarter, so it was a difficult situation for many folks. So during that time, we did not require the activities, the lessons, the homework per se, the labs, any of that. Now, in this platform, we will. And if it's we may eliminate things that are called wet labs, which require equipment, or a teacher may do that as an observation where the students watch the teacher do that wet lab. So that's a potential as well. The difference, again, is our teachers will be have an open Zoom 30 minutes a day if they're blended, and I think an hour a day if they're not on the set. I'm only talking secondary right now. That's open so that students can come in and ask questions because, even fourth quarter, I got people who said, this was too easy, my kid finished in a week. Okay. Then I got people who couldn't finish, and it was very, very difficult for their students to do it. So we have both ends of that spectrum. So we understand if that. We're also looking at those difficult concepts. So the teacher will teach 1 hour a week of a difficult concept. If it's an ELA course, they'll be working on writing. In the elementary level, that's one of the things that we're saying they have to do is a writing lesson once a week to also add to the program. So we will allow teachers to be doing some of those additional things. We're looking at right now, English 2 honors also goes into ACE general paper. So we're looking at a teacher who could potentially do the English 2 honors, but supplement it to make it equivalent to the ACE general paper for the students who want the ACE general paper. But all of those things are in the works. I think people will feel like the program's different. That it was fourth quarter, and it's definitely different than the recovery course.
Great.
So does that?
And I think, and I love the idea of the newsletter going out, and I would like that, right?
I know you would.
And, but also I think maybe I'm concerned that parents are basing what we're about to do on that last quarter. And it's different. It's a different world. The challenge is going to be different. I just want to make sure we're emphasizing that the coursework, even though we're going to help students any way we can, we have to bring that education level up, and make sure that people are, that they're there. We don't want our students to get any farther behind than what they've lost in this gap time. So I just hope parents understand that it's not going to be the, stopgap kind of thing to get us through. This is what we're doing now, and it's long-term.
And I think we've put that out in every document that we put out, that this will be different. We've also expressed that at the administrative level, at the school level. So as they're, the administrators are having to talk to every student who's going online.
Right.
So they're making sure that they understand those things, because then they're having to fix their schedule, because some of the things that they had might not fit, or what else do you want to take? These are the other things that are offered online. So those are things that are happening. So they're talking to every every student. An ESE student is going to have an interim IEP beforehand to look at the accommodations they have in the building and the accommodations that are provided online. How are we going to get their resource if they were a pullout student in elementary? All of those things are going to happen for that student if they have speech and they choose to. Now, I will tell you, a lot of people fourth quarter who had those services chose not to have them at home because it was just difficult for them to meet a schedule and get their children online. So that's perfectly okay if that's what the parent chooses. But if they don't, then we will be providing those things in a virtual environment for their students. Also, we've also allowed, if those students want to come up and come to the building for speech and OT or PT, they can make that choice as well. But all of those things are really one-on-one conversations that's what the schools are doing right now. So I want to believe that parents understand that this will be a different look at the platform, even though it's still EdgeNuity, will be a different look at it.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Mr. Destin?
Nothing.
Okay, Dr. Kelly?
I forgot to unmute. Talking away. No, I appreciate all those efforts, and particularly the point about the version of EdgeNuity being much more rigorous than what was experienced in the fourth quarter. That has been the gravest concern that I've heard, both from parents and teachers, that it was just laughable in their estimation. So to me, that's a very great point to put out there. But I wondered, Sheila, if for a moment you could speak to the professional development that the instructors are going through to be able to make sure that rigor is there in the coming year.
Absolutely. So like I said, we've already done Zooms with those who are available to do Zooms with the content area specialists at this point, and then professional development. So we have, it's another puzzle, Dr. Kelly. So we have iReady training that's coming in for our K-8 teachers, and the K-8, K-5 and our IM and IR teachers will have a half-day training on how to provide the iReady instruction, and then the rest of our 6-8 will be looking at how to read the reports. Our content area folks are doing specific training on not only the rigor for online, so that online teacher will have specific training to them that will be 2 days long right now, 2 full days beyond the other training that we're doing. So there's a COVID day of training for all teachers that includes online. There's a PD, a curriculum day of training that includes everybody, including online, because they will also be doing the iReady with their students. And then there is 2 additional days of specific online training for the teachers who are 100% online. So there's some very extensive training out there. All of that is being put together right now. And then, like I said, there are bits of training at this point that I just sent out today that teachers can start getting their feet wet with live webinars through those companies. Starting today, there's webinars today, so those are available as well. And then also some video training that is available now as well. So all of those pieces are occurring starting today, and then will be pretty intense that week of pre-planning.
All right, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Dr. White, any comments for Ms. Lightbourne?
No, thank you, Mr. Bryant.
Okay. And I just have one question regarding the COVID issue with what you were talking about, the COVID Chronicles. Mm-hmm. And I guess I could point this one toward Mr. Chambers. Do we have, for the schools, do we have a flow chart for if a student or a teacher or somebody tests, or we think they might, or have symptoms or anything like that? Is there something that's provided to the school, how they would handle those particular situations?
Absolutely. So we've already sent that out to schools, so they have it, so they know if it's a positive case, what they do. So for example, if it's a positive case and it's an employee, it comes to HR, the contact. If it's a student, it goes to Ms. Schroeder. But there's we have for a positive, for a contact of a contact, as well as symptoms. Ms. Schroeder, part of that last Chronicles was also what happens if you're positive or if you are a contact, because that's one of the questions that I get a lot as well, which is
Right.
why that last Chronicles addressed that specifically, because there were a
Right.
number of parents asking it, but yes.
Okay. And the reason why I asked that is just like you've been referencing a puzzle. I mean, there's so many moving components to this, and I can imagine as an administrator at a school, something comes up, that if they have something there that they can kind of go by that would help them make the best possible decision with what they have right there, that would be helpful. So if that's already going on, then that's great.
We actually put that out this summer to the schools that had summer daycares and summer recovery programs, so they already had it. It's also the last couple pages of our reopening plan, so that's been out there for anybody who would like to see. That's in the reopening plan as well, and our principals all have it and are aware of it as well.
Thank you, Ms. Lightbourne.
And if you don't mind,
Go
so
ahead.
so Ms. Lightbourne, this will be like a 1 or 2 minute summary right here. Because I think this is important because you guys get this question as well, because I know I do. Just really quickly talk about the alignment and the work that y'all have done in terms of those in the building and those online.
Okay, so our curriculum specialist employed some of our teachers to come in or work virtually with to align both the EdgeNuity curriculum to the brick and mortar pacing guide. And the reason for that is so that if we had to put a student out, that we have the option of saying, okay, go to EdgeNuity, not a student or a class, go to EdgeNuity lesson 2.2 and do that lesson, because that lesson is what we are working on right now. Now, if that isn't a doable situation for the student, then the teachers will still have, remember their drop boxes that we had in the 4th 9 weeks, they'll still have those to be able to put other materials in and instructions in, so that's also possible. But that alignment was made for the ease of in and out transitions. It's also been done at elementary, ELA, and math, so that, again, that in and out transition. Now, we would not use the Accelerate platform if we had to put a class out. We would use iReady, just because Accelerate, when you go into that program full on as a student, you are now counted as one of our students. So we wouldn't want to put them in for 2 weeks and pull them out and then pay that full price for them. But the teacher will still have the ability in the Accelerate program to be working through those programs as a whole group instruction. So the students will be familiar with the Accelerate program as well, and that's also aligned. So that's what we've worked on. Is that?
No, absolutely. And if for some reason, heaven forbid, I don't even like to say it, but if heaven forbid we had to close schools for some reason, then kids would be aligned. And then also when online students come back, we're also on pacing as well. So that's critical. So
Right.
I appreciate that, Ms. Lightbourne.
You're welcome.
Okay, we're going to have to take a 1-minute break. So I'm going to recess the meeting for 1 minute.
Awesome.
Meeting back to order. Mr. Chambers, I believe you have a few more things to say.
Thank you, sir. And the last piece that I'd like to say, just within the COVID update, there's so much that is occurring where you might see it visibly in terms of emails or in terms of on our website, but then there's a number of things that happen behind the scenes that make all of it possible. So I do want to say also, when you look at our finance department and Rita and her department and what they're doing, because as you know, we have CARES Act money, then we have our own budget. And the thing that I appreciate, because we want to open schools as safely as possible, is how Rita and her department have really worked with everyone in order to do this, and it takes a lot of coordinating. So I appreciate that. When you look at HR and the communication that they've had with the schools, with employees, especially as it pertains to leave and what would happen if I have to go out. They have really worked diligently. They've been on the phone with employees answering, personal questions as well, looking at the substitute situation, which I'm proud because they actually started that back in the June time frame. So there's a lot that goes on. And then our union has really been a partner through this. And and they've done a good job of making sure that they're looking out for the safety of their employees, asking some tough questions that need to be asked. But then we work through that together, so I appreciate that. And then lastly, your school board attorney Jeff has been a blessing as well, as we've met through all of these difficult topics, had discussions. He's even reached out to his group across the state, how certain things might be happening in different areas. So just an entire district coming together in order to open schools safely. And everything's not perfect, but we're going to continue working as we go forward. So thank you.
Thank you. So just a quick item here. 7.2 is for workshop only. So this discussion, even though it could happen on Monday night, we, out of the request of certain school board members and Mr. Chambers, trying to communicate, this will be a standing item moving forward until we get past this issue. But just so school board members will know that, and the general public, that during workshops, Section 7, whether it be 7.2 or 7.3, will be an update regarding any COVID-related issues within the school district. So we appreciate that as a board, and Mr. Chambers, we appreciate your staff coming up and talking about these issues for the general public to hear this morning. So
Thank you.
all right. So we'll move down to consent agenda. 8.1 will be the approval of the consent agenda. 8.2 will be the approval of the minutes of the special meeting of July 23rd, 2020, minutes of the workshop meeting of July 23rd, 2020, minutes of the regular meeting of July 27th, 2020. And as we move forward, school board members, if you have any, if you'd like to ask questions or have comments about any particular item on the consent agenda, just stop me, and we do have some staff members that are here this morning that might be able to help you. But I'm hoping that, as we have in the past, for the spirit of moving through the agenda, but also for the safety of our employees, I've asked that the employees do reach out that have items on the agenda to maybe answer questions ahead of time. So, but stop me at any time moving forward. So we're at 8.3, invoices to be approved for payment. 8.4, emergency purchase of ultra board desk barriers.
Let me just ask one question that will address the next 4 or 5 items that are all the emergency purchases.
Yes, sir, Mr. Dessinger.
The staff's been contacting us, I'm sure all of you, with these emergency purchases, and I appreciate that, it helps a lot. But just as a general overview, I wanted to ask Ms. Scanlon, these emergency purchases, these and the ones we've already done, add up to in excess of $1 million. Explain to me, we believe all of these are going to be refunded by CARE Act, hopefully.
Actually, we've received project award notifications for the GEARS money, which was during the summer, and that was about 500,000 round numbers. And then we've actually received a project award notification for the ESSER, which is 5.2 million, which gives us the ability to budget that money. And then as we actually pay the expenditure, then we get the reimbursement. So the difference in the 2 weeks or 3 weeks is just cash flow, but the revenue is set, and we will get that money. That's a guarantee.
That was the exact point of my question. The cash flow could begin to be a problem if it's not done exactly the way you say we are doing it, which gives me a great deal of relief. Otherwise, this has to be pulled out of a reserve somewhere, and we have to wait for our money. But it sounds like that's not a real issue right now. So thanks for that explanation. And the only other comment I would have is this particular one is for the plexiglass partitions they're going to go on, as I understand, every desk.
So it's a little bit different than the plexiglass, but it's a little barrier, like in the shape of a U, but with right angles.
Right.
It actually folds. Kids can actually take it with them as well. And schools will do it a little bit differently, but yes, it'll be on the desk.
And I was just going to observe, short of cutting class sizes in half, that's the next best alternative that we have, because essentially it will cut them significantly, along with the 25% reduction of online people. We will be getting very close to the goal that CDC has said to cut classes sizes significantly. So, I applaud it. They're very expensive, as I saw.
They are.
But they're not as expensive as cutting classes in half and hiring a bunch of new teachers and all of those things associated. So it's a good fallback position, and I'm very happy that you all have tried to implement it or in the process of implementing it. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Are we now on 8.5?
So I'm moving down to, 8.5. Are you going to have a question when we get there? Okay. So 8.5, emergency purchase of technology equipment, and Ms. Vancheck.
Yes, thank you. I lost there for a minute, but, okay, so my question is, I see we have, on this one, we're purchasing 1,200 iPads, and then there's another one where we're doing some Dell. So I know that when we went to the online piece, the fourth quarter, we gave out a lot of devices, but I've not seen an accounting of those devices. Do we have that? Where are we on those? Because this is a lot more. So I just want to make sure that we're getting back our assets here. Can you address that, please?
Absolutely. We'll have Mr. Mitchell come forward, and kind of what's here also, as you remember, at the elementary level, iPads and the Chromebooks to get to a 1-to-1, and that is the goal, which I think will also serve us well as during this COVID piece. But Mr. Mitchell?
Yes. We have made several efforts to collect all of the devices that are still out there. We expect to have another round of what's available, what's left, what still needs to be picked up. We expect to have that latest number. Actually, I'm expecting it by the end of today. So we can probably give you another number on Monday night. But right now, we think there's still about 25% of what we handed out still needing to be returned.
Is that 25%?
Mm-hmm.
Which is about how many devices?
Including the hotspots, we believe that number is somewhere around 1,000. Maybe a little bit more.
Okay, that's still quite a few.
It is.
It is.
What we've been doing to assist with that is we have been providing principals with a list, which not only includes who got the device, but their contact information, so that principals and the schools have been calling these folks saying, where's my device, where's my device? And then we've been sending out messages to the device. We've turned off all the hotspots that we've sent out, so they basically say I have a message on it saying it's time to return this to the school. All the iPads have the exact same message. The Chromebooks will have a new message. We've got a message on the Chromebooks that say it's time to return this device. They're going to get an updated message in the next, actually it's scheduled for this afternoon, which means it's tonight and tomorrow morning when it'll go out. And that'll be little more urgency message on the Chromebook saying, hey, you know, you need to get these back, you're accountable for these, that kind of stuff. Those messages will start going out in an attempt to get them all brought back. We're even using support people in places where I've got a device, I want to bring it back, but I can't, to get those devices from those people.
Can the device be in, what am I trying to say, disabled so that they couldn't be used?
Yes, ma'am. We've done that to
Okay.
the hotspots and to the iPads.
Okay, great.
The
Okay.
Chromebooks will have something similar to that done to them with the message that will be sent out tonight, or yes, tomorrow night.
And just to add to that, there are a lot of cases. Of course, we had the summer program that the district had implemented that was running into July, and also the at the request at the state level, the summer program for remediation as well. So there have been a lot of contacts with parents who have wanted to keep that device. And so now that all that's completed and kind of finished up last week, we actually have a scheduled call out to go out this evening, not this evening, today's Thursday, tomorrow, kind of a weekly call out to one, point our parents to more information that's on our website, but also to remind those that have a device to make sure they bring it back to the building. Because some folks just think that they want to come back the first day of school and say, well, here's my device that I had over the summer. But those devices have to be taken in, inventoried, cleaned, and repurposed. So that call out's going out tomorrow night as well in all of our languages to make sure that those folks do that.
Okay, so ultimately, if we don't get things back, what position are we in to assess these parents, this, like you would a band uniform or an instrument or anything else that's our asset? Are we in that position to charge them, so to speak?
So we are in a position to be able to do that. The folks signed for all of these devices to check them out. And so we've got those tracked and making sure. Now, you know, one of the things that's happening too is we tried to make it as convenient for parents as possible. So if they came to one particular school to get a device, or maybe they had 2 or 3 devices for their family, then they took it all back to one school and dropped it off there instead of taking it back. So that re-inventorying piece is happening as well. So, but we do have that roster of folks who have not done that, and that is absolutely an option to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Sure does. Any comments, Dr. Kelly?
I have a related comment that actually could be interjected anywhere from 8.4 to 8.10. With all of these new purchased items or newly requested items to be purchased, I'm sure that we are keeping a running tally on where we are with using up our CARES Act amount that was allotted to our district. Can someone tell us where we are along that continuum of I believe it was 5.2 million that our district received, and I know a lot of these purchases are in the $500,000 and above range. So,
Dr. Kelly,
do we have a kind of a sliding figure of where we are?
Yes, ma'am. Dr. Kelly, Ms. Scallon has approached the podium. She's going to answer your question.
Dr. Kelly,
Thank
we
you.
have a project set up for each one of those federal grants that we've received, the GEAR and the ESSER. The money has been budgeted based on the application that we sent in and was approved. In fact, I ran a report on that yesterday that someone asked me for information on that. If you look at the available balance, it's substantially all of it is still available because these emergency purchase orders have not posted yet. But once they post, I mean, I can give you the available balance, but all of the money's budgeted. Nothing is being purchased that is not already budgeted. There will be adjustments because things will come in at plus or minus whatever the estimate was originally. And then there may be some things that originally were thought were needed that are no longer needed. So we'll have some budget amendments as we go, but nothing will be purchased that is not budgeted for and accounted for.
Now, I certainly never meant to intimate that, but just a consideration as to how much of that CARES Grant Act money we had already encumbered, or, you know, were we halfway done with it? Are we 3/4 way of using up our 5.2 million? Or, if we had some estimation of how close we were to using that up, or if we had a long way yet to go. That was my only curiosity, not ever to suggest that we wouldn't be using it appropriately, certainly.
No, and I'm sorry if my comment came across like that, because I certainly didn't intend it to. I was just trying to relay that that whatever is being purchased is within the money that's being that is budgeted for those particular items. That was my only intent on that. However, probably about 40% of the money that we have available has been committed in terms of purchase orders that have gone out and that are encumbered. So we probably have about $2.5 million out of the $5.2 million that currently is in the form of purchase orders.
Thank you.
Okay. Dr. White, any questions or comments?
No, sir, I understand. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And so we'll move down to 8.6, and Mr. Mitchell, if you would please come forward. I will have a question regarding this. And this is emergency purchase increase in wide area network bandwidth per contract ITB 18-09.
Yes, sir.
And my question for you, and I think Ms. Ivanchek can relate to this, we have students that are in very rural parts of the county, and how will this maybe help them or affect them, or will it, or is this just something that will increase it, for the entire district?
Well, the increase in bandwidth at the schools levels is primarily to ensure that we can do all of the data transmission, the videos, the Zoom, the Teams, the Google Face, anything we need to do between teachers and students, that we'll be able to do that from the schools. But none of that will help anybody who's in a place where internet isn't prevalent. So if I live in an area where I have no internet whatsoever, or I have very poor internet, even with a hotspot, where I don't even have, if I live in a place where I have poor internet and poor cell signal, then getting them none of the bandwidth that we could do would ever solve that problem. We've looked at ways to help with that, but the build out is not there. We've called our providers that we usually call, who have the responsibility of Okaloosa County, and called them up and said, I need this person to have internet, and they will tell us we can't do it. So once they do that, then we don't really have much of a recourse.
Right.
We've looked at some ideas that are outside of what we've been planning so far for ways that might help, but they involve they typically involve the parent on that end traveling.
And I understand it's a very small amount of students that are affected by this, but it's always great to be able to tell the public that something like this, we're trying to increase the bandwidth for inside the school, but we are also trying to figure out how we can reach those that small population of students that, like you said, they don't have that connection. So.
Yeah, the predominant communities are the Blackman area, which
Right.
includes Escambia Farms,
Right.
the Dorcas community, out by, what's that, 393, I think it is, that runs over there between almost to the Walton County line. And then there's a small community south of Crestview, right next to the Air Force Base, that has a outage issue. But for the most part, those three areas have been our toughest to try to
Right.
find solutions for.
Right. And I know I talked to a county commissioner yesterday, and he was telling me that they're trying to come up with a ring or something, like a internet ring, or that will help those communities up there. And that's probably going to be something in the future that we'll partner with them on to help, expand that service. So.
We at one time looked at putting a fiber link to the Blackman community. So, Blackman to Baker School is still like 15 to 20 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
And so there's people who go to Baker who live 20 minutes from the Blackman Community Center.
Right.
So we thought at one point in time we could put in a connection at the Blackman Community Center, at least they drive halfway.
Right.
And our closest fiber link to that is 8 miles.
Yeah.
That's 8 miles of underground fiber bore. That's a very expensive project. So we're looking at other solutions that might help with that. But right now we don't have anything that we would say that we could do that we would be assured that it would help those areas.
Right. And you think we're in the year 2020 and that everybody would have access to internet, and that's still
No,
not
it's
the
the
case.
same story. If you go to Santa Rosa, Escambia, all those northern areas, or some of those others, you go either direction, you have the same stories.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. Ms. Vancheck, you need?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Dest? Dr. Kelly?
No, thank you.
Okay, Dr. White?
No, thank you.
Okay, so we'll move on down to 8.7, emergency purchase increase in internet speed per contract ITB 18-10. 8.8, tag on bid purchase over $25,000 for Dell. 8.9, exempted purchase over $25,000, achieve $3,000. 8.10, exempted purchase over $25,000, curriculum associates. 8.11, service agreement number 21-43, Kristen Elder. 8.12, five-year survey recommendation report.
Just a quick question, Chairman.
Yes, sir. Go ahead, Mr.
This is
Dest.
mandated by state law, and we have to do it, and it's 186 pages long, and it addresses every school in the district. I think the only question I have is, do these plans, which my understanding is we can't go forward to build or construct without them being in a plan, and we do have the ability to amend this later, do they reflect any of the proposed work that is associated with the half-cent sales tax?
Mr. Horton, if you would, please.
It does. This process has been in place for a long time.
Yep.
It does reflect it, but you're actually absolutely right. Any work that can be done or would be done through the half cent, if it requires a survey, a site survey, we would do that.
We'll have to go back and change it, right?
Some of the things in here would not have to have site surveys because they're in this plan, but you're right. Yes, sir, and that is a
Okay,
process.
well, just something we'll have to do, and it's not that slow a process, is it? We just change it and send it back to them?
Yes, sir. And I can bring Dr. Smith in. He's in the hallway, and he can speak to some specifics, or he can follow up with you.
I'll call him and he can explain
Yes,
how
sir.
we go forward.
Yes, sir.
Thanks.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. So 8.13, sale and disposal of surplus property. 8.14, school food service updated a la carte pricing for elementary and secondary schools for the 2020-2021 school year. 8.15, memorandum of understanding between the School Board of Okaloosa County and the Northwest Florida Fusion Center. 8.16, cooperative agreement between the School Board of Okaloosa County and the Children's Home Society of Florida to provide mental health services to students in Okaloosa County schools. 8.17, addendum to the 2020-2021 contract for health services between the School Board of Okaloosa County and Avena Healthcare. 8.18, 2020 through 2021 application for renewal of the AFRL Engineers for America EFA Science, Technology, Engineering, and Mathematics STEM Initiative grants for Meigs Middle School. 8.19, 2020 through 2021 application for renewal of the AFRL Engineers for America EFA Science, Technology, Engineering, and Mathematics STEM Initiative grant for Okaloosa STEM Academy. 8.20, Title IV, Part A, Florida Department of Education project application for 2020-2021 presented by Tammy Ellis. And then 8.21, Building K through 12 CTE Infrastructure CARES Act grant for the fiscal year 2020 through 2021. And that's presented by Ms. April Branscombe. Okay, so let's move down to Superintendent's Human Resource recommendations, and the first two are informational only. So 9.1 will be employees on administrative leave, and 9.2 deferred retirement option program, the DROP. And then we'll move down to 9.3, cleared certification requirements and issuance of contracts for the 2020-2021 school year. 9.4, out-of-field report for the 2020-2021 school year. 9.5, addendum to the master contract between the School Board of Okaloosa County and the Okaloosa County Education Association.
I'd like to say something about that.
Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
Okay. First of all, I think everybody knows I was in this district as a teacher for a long time, and I know one of the things that teachers always wanted was it makes sense that you would know what your pay would be before you go back to work. And many, many times that didn't happen. So I just want to congratulate Dr. Hale and the HR department, and of course also the union and everyone, because I know that this is a lot to put together with everything going on. There's also another piece coming when we're talking about the mandate from the legislature on other things, but I think this is very good, and certainly in this particular time, it's nice to be able to let those employees know what their salary would be, and everything going back in, and certainly that is always a morale booster, let's just say that, but it's good. And I know that this was kind of moved up on the priority list to get this done, and with so many things, everything's screaming priority right now. So I just want to appreciate you, tell you how much I appreciate you and what you've done and getting all this done. I know that typically, we've had different ways of doing it. Sometimes we have the teachers or the employees vote, and then it comes to the board. But this way, I think it's fine. It's obviously, that's what they're sending their representatives. So once we, if we do approve it, then we can move forward pretty quickly. And I'm glad, because the other piece is working with Ms. Scallon and finance. Those individuals are really, with everything they're having to cover, and then having to go back in and do the payment and everything. So a lot of pieces, like we've been talking. So I just want everybody to know how much everybody's working to get that moved up, so that those employees can get paid on time and still have that. So thank you.
Mr. Destin?
Nothing.
Okay. Dr. Kelly?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay. Dr. White?
No, thank you.
Okay, so we'll move down to 9.6, addendum to the master contract between the School Board of Okaloosa County and the Okaloosa Education Staff Professionals. And 9.7, proposed fiscal year 2020-2021 salary schedules for administrative, managerial, professional, and technical and temporary personnel, presented by Ms. Scallon. 9.8, employment separations. 9.9, personnel recommendations. 9.10, employee transfers. 9.11, reinstatement reimbursement of sick leave due to line of duty, illness, injury, medical examination. And 9.12, leave without pay. And then we'll move down to section 10, and at this time, there's no items to be moved, but that could change anytime. And then 11 is construction program owners representatives business, and 11.1, Mr. Destin. I'll turn it over to you, sir.
Thank you, Chairman. 11.2 outlines a change in the roof that we're working on at Kenwood. We found that there was some more work that needed to be done. The contractor that was on site said that they would stay and fix it. Jacobs Titan said they wouldn't charge anything more. Whatever their fee would amount to would be waived. So this item tells us and gets the board's approval to go ahead and fix that other section of the roof. And 11.3, in my opinion, is good news. We have what's called a shared savings there. When Jacob Titans gives us an estimate on what something's supposed to cost, after we've done some of the work, we go back, and if it costs less, then there's a shared savings. This is on the security work we've done around the schools, and they attribute it to the fact that after Hurricane Michael, the price of doing the things we were doing, putting fences, doing the various other security measures, were very high, and it has come down since that time period. So they have realized an 1.2 million, I believe, cost savings.
Wow.
And
That is
Mr.
good
Horton,
news.
and that's good. Mr. Horton and I have briefly discussed that this money probably would be well applied to the further next phase of security work that we have to do on the schools, and we will, of course, get the board's blessing on that. And as we know, in the times we're in right now, who knows what kind of priority may pop up.
Right.
But at this time, that would probably be the best way, since this was allocated to school security anyway, to take it in and apply it to some of the further work we have to do.
Okay.
So that's the report on that. And unless the superintendent has anything to add,
I think you've stated it well.
thank you.
I do have a question. Can you give an update on what's happening at Baker? I know they were working on the cafeteria there.
Mr. Horton, as far as I know, they are still proceeding, but of course, when you tear old things up and try to fix them, it gets very complicated.
Yes, sir. Ms. Vancheck, it is an involved process, and I was up there last week with Mr. Martello and Dustin Merritt, who's with Jacobs Titan, and kind of did a tour of that. So they're doing multiple things at the same time up there. The front office is being finished. The classroom renovation is going well and will be ready for the beginning of school. And so the cafeteria is the piece now that it's been gutted. And they're going to come in and do some of the piping work and the electrical work and upgrading the electrical service. There is an understanding that won't be ready for the beginning of the school year. So with the push of the start date to the 31st, they are able to do a lot more uninterrupted. The school has a plan to move their serving lines outside of the kitchen area. So we will be providing meals into that school. And so they will be working kind of at in a non-standard format for the beginning of the school year. And so I know
do we have an
Jacobs-
estimate of how long we'd have to do it like that?
I think it probably would be about I've been given an October date. So if school's going to start, school's essentially going to start at the beginning of September. So it may be a month that they're working
Okay.
out of that situation. But I know Jacobs Titan is working with us to do everything they can to get it done as
Is
quickly
that
as they
because
can.
it involved more once they got into it and that, or just?
There's a lot to do with that. I mean, once the board approved that GMP, they did go in and take a look at it, and there are a lot of things involved there. Now, there's nothing going to change the cost of it for the district perspective, but it is a very extensive process. It's a complete overhaul in that kitchen area.
Okay.
So they'll have a great product when they're done, but it is going to take a little bit of time. And I know Mr. Martello will do a great job communicating with the families there, because in addition to this, they're obviously working on their plans to make sure in the COVID environment that everything is safe and secure. So the schools have added lunch times and periods to spread out the students. They've added locations where students can eat that are other than the cafeteria. So, and again, nothing's happening to the cafeteria space per se, because all that work is being done in the kitchen area.
Okay, gotcha. All
Yes,
right,
ma'am.
thank you.
Yeah, but basically, when you go to an old building like that, everything you touch has to be replaced.
Right.
And until you tear it apart, you don't know.
Exactly.
And so it's, we're fortunate or unfortunate in the way you look at it, that we're going to push school starting ahead. That gives, like Steve said, that gives them time to work for another couple of weeks uninterrupted. But, looks like more the beginning of October, but they're getting there.
Thank you.
So we'll move down to 11 point, and by the way, thank you, Mr. Destin, again, for all your hard work on there, and to the staff members that assist Mr. Destin do
It's
this.
the staff that does it. I'm
Yes.
just sitting in the background, kind of watching what's going on.
All right, 11.2, TPM Program Number 6, Task Order Number 8, Scope Modification, Owner Directed Change Order for Kenwood Elementary School Kitchen Dining Roof Replacement. And then 11.3 is 11 Partial Shared Savings, Jacobs L3 Capital Outlay Programs, 6, Task Order 2. And both of these items we'll be voting on Monday night. And now we'll move down to number 12, which is Information Technology Seat Management Contract. And we do have 2 items to vote on Monday night. 12.1, Task Order Number 2-164, Niceville High School Choice Classrooms Audio Video Install and Demo. And then 12.2, Task Order Number 2-165, Bruner Middle School Computer Labs. And that brings us down to 13, Attorney's Business, Mr. McInnes.
No report this morning.
Okay, and then we'll move down to Superintendent's Business, Mr. Chambers.
Thank you. I do want to recognize, we do have Miss Neely Calhoun who's here, who had an item on the agenda. So appreciate you coming and supporting that agenda item, as well as the work to put that application together. So thank you. And I think in our COVID update, I think we've said a lot. The only thing that I would reiterate right now is there's a lot of your employees who are working very hard to get the start of school ready for COVID, plus all the other normal business that we have to do just to get school ready. So I just very much appreciate all that's going on. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll move down to Section 15 out of the board members' announcements and requests for information. And I am going to start with Dr. Kelly, who is on the phone. So, Dr. Kelly, you're up first.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do have just a couple of questions and then a comment. I remember hearing earlier on about a rapid response team that each school would have, or each zone perhaps would have. Can we get an update on where we are with putting those teams together, or team together?
Absolutely. Mr. Horton?
So,
you.
Mr. Horton is going to approach the podium.
Well, I would say, so there's a couple different things that we could be referring to here. From the cleaning and disinfecting side, we have been working to hire rapid response, which would be an additional cleaning and custodial staff to support schools in the event of a COVID situation, and also to just overall support school cleanliness and disinfection. So I know that we've passed through the transfer period for that, and I know that Dr. Smith, I think, has been actively looking for individuals to fill that position. I can give you an update on Monday as to hirings that have been made, but I don't have that number off the top of my head. And so that would be,
Okay.
if that's what you're referring to. I do think that Terry Schroeder is working as well on some contact tracing that I think the superintendent could speak to.
Absolutely. On the
Okay, I was really talking about support to the schools. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And then my second comment is with regard to the addition of 7.2. I would just like to respectfully request that any slides that we know are coming could be attached to the workshop agenda so the board members could review those in advance, and that way we could be more efficient in our meetings, both our workshop meetings and our actual meetings.
Okay. We can do that.
Hello?
Yeah, Mr. Chambers acknowledged that he will have his staff do that.
Okay, thank you so much. And then just continued acknowledgement and appreciation for both the COVID information that Ms. Schroeder is putting out, and continued appreciation for Dr. Chapman's information, especially this week's communication regarding the upward trend in local pediatric cases, which makes me go back to my advocacy for masks. And even if you think we must have an opt-out, but all of the health-related officials that I can listen to all are saying that the masks are the typical way and the easiest way we can help prevent that spread. And again, I'll go back to advocating for giving our teaching staff some control over the use or preference of those in their own teaching environment. So that's all I have. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Kelly. And Dr. White, you're up next. Dr. White?
I'm sorry, I was still on mute.
Okay.
Yes, I just wanted to say that I appreciate all the work that's gone into all of this entirely new situation in our district, state, and nation, and the world for that matter. But I did want to point out to parents and to folks that might be listening the excellent work that's been done on OkaloosaSchools.com, particularly the section regarding reopening Okaloosa schools. A lot of good information there. It's been updated regularly and very frequently and often. But I do have a question, and I know that students and parents have declared their intention for how it is that they wish to initiate the school year, whether it be in person in school or whether it be online. But I think I read that there is a possibility for parents to change their mind during the course of the year. And so I'm wondering if the superintendent or his staff might speak to that so that parents and families know how all that's going to work.
Absolutely. Good question, Dr. White. So where we currently stand, families, in essence, at any point could go from brick and mortar to online. Situations could change within Okaloosa County where a family might feel more comfortable being online. Once the school year starts and a family decides to be online, We have set a standard to where they could come back at the end of the 9 weeks with the recommendation to come back at the end of the semester. And I think, as we all know, as students come back to the brick and mortar, let's just say at the end of the 9 weeks, what that's going to call for will be, depending on how many, we may have to restructure. Some of the teachers that are online could potentially have to come back into the school building. Those individuals who didn't have health-related issues, and they were kind enough to help us out with going online. So that could happen right now as well. Where we currently stand in terms of the choices that were made, brick and mortar or online, if a family were or were wanting to change their mind, schools are working individually with those families right now. We have some families who have moved to a different area of the county, and they say that has changed their situation. So schools are doing a good job of working with families right now in terms of the choices that they've made. But at the end of the 9 weeks, a family that was online could come back, and also at the end of the semester.
Thank you, Superintendent. That's excellent information, and appreciate very much. And I'm sure that the parents of the county appreciate the fact that you guys are trying to work and be as flexible as possible in this uncharted territory. Thank you. That's all, Mr. Bryant.
Okay, thank you, Dr. White. And Ms. Ivanchek.
Yes. Following up on what Dr. Kelly asked, so our stance as a district on masks is still highly recommended, correct? No mandate?
Currently, yes, ma'am.
At this point, okay. But you're still in touch with Dr. Chapman on those things about making that decision, correct?
So when a final decision is made, absolutely, but we do still have regular contact with Dr. Chapman. Currently, I am still talking with some teachers, some staff, also the union as well. Dr. Hale's doing a good job there, trying to get just more information on masks. So we will see as we continue to go forward through this month where we end up. What I will reiterate, what I do not want to do is get into a situation where masks become a disciplinary issue. So I don't think any of us want to be there.
Right.
But we will continue to have conversations, keep our mind open as we go forward throughout this month. Could masks eventually become required? They could, but I think we have more conversations to have.
So as we go through approaching the first day of school, we're going to be continuing to revisit that topic.
It's absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, great. All right, thank you. One more thing. I know with everything going on, this is a census year. We brought that up before, and the Florida School Board Association is asking us to put out to the public that the census is still very important. It kind of got lost with the pandemic, but the census group is still trying to collect that information. And of course, they've been limited in being able to go to people's homes, but it's not too late. If you threw the paper away or whatever, you can just go to census.gov and complete that. It's very easy, very user-friendly, and it's very important. I think a lot of times we think another government thing, but it does indicate money even coming to our school system. How that's all divvied up is with the census. So I'd like to encourage our citizens to do that. I know that Florida is way behind on that, where as a state, we're holding our own up here in Northwest Florida, but it's important to get those in. So it's census.gov. Thank you.
And I'll just comment, if you do it online, it takes less than 2 minutes.
Very
Trust
easy.
me, it is very easy. So, that's how easy they've made it, and that's a great thing. So, Mr. Destin.
And if you get your wife to do it, it's even faster.
It's even faster.
I'm just comment on the face mask issue. I think we're presently at about 12 or 13% positive in the ratio between tests taken and the results. CDC was recommending 5% is where we hopefully we would be at. The issue is still very much up in the air. The experiences at our surrounding districts, who will be going back a week or so ahead of us, will give us more data. So, I'm glad that we will be able to address that issue as we get closer and closer to opening date, and we will have some more data in hand that will dictate to us what we need to do.
Good point,
And that's
Mr.
all I
Destin.
have.
Good
Yep.
point.
And my final comment would be just, we're in an election cycle right now, and I was very humbled and honored that I was put in unopposed this go-round. And but during that time, we go out and raise money, and we try to spend it on things that are going to be beneficial to a campaign. And when you run unopposed, you don't have to spend a lot of money. So, Ms. Ivanchek, I know you'll appreciate this, but the money that I will be closing out my campaign account with is going to be all donated to the Okaloosa Schools Foundation. And it's not a lot this year, but it's close to $3,000, but $3,000 goes a long way. So.
Well, with a scholarship is right at the $4,000 mark, so that's great. Thank you so much, Mr. Bryant,
Yes.
and certainly very well used and needed in that, so.
Right.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. It's terrific.
You're welcome. And then also to the superintendent and to all of our fabulous and awesome employees within the Okaloosa County School District, to our parents, to our community leaders. Thank you again for all that you're doing to help us get through this summer, moving into going back to school. I just remind everybody that it's changing every day. So please be patient with your school, with your administrators at the schools. They're doing their best to answer all the questions that they can, or try to make the transition very smooth. But like Mr. Chambers said earlier, it's not perfect, but I can assure you that we all of us are trying our hardest to make the transition from the normal to the new normal as normal as possible. So, again, thank you for that. And then we'll move down to section 16, which is public comment part 2. And this again will be for Monday night's meeting. This is members of the public desiring to address the school board. This particular section is 2 minutes instead of 4 minutes. And then the part that I like the most, we're adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Could you put that at the beginning of the meeting?